What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to the not the WWE, I'm so tired. The AEW All Out 2023 post show. The pay-per-view just ended. We are going to talk about everything that happened on the show. We are going to run down the pros and the cons, all the match results, so on and so forth. I see we're having another issue potentially with the stream again today. I don't know what's happening with the way that's, maybe it's going to settle itself out by the time that I'm saying that anyway. Momentary issue with that. I guess maybe there's something going on with my internet lately. I don't know. If you have any issues with this, let me know. But I am here, as always, Tony Mango, and I'm always joined by Callum Wiggins.
Hello.
So I am going to preface our, I already kind of mentioned it, our recap here by saying I'm very tired, very burned out and all. So you're not going to hear as much enthusiasm from me as I really wish that I could give off, because I actually really enjoyed this pay-per-view quite a bit. There are really a good set of matches here. The things that I disliked are not anything that's like, end of the world type of stuff or any, I mean, none of that would be anyway. It's just pro wrestling, but I didn't think that anything was really all that bad. I thought that there was a lot of really, really good stuff, and then a lot of stuff that was decent to good, but basically 2 thumbs up all around for the most part for me. It's going to sound like I don't really think that just because I'm like desperate to go to bed already from all this pro wrestling that we've been having the past 2 weeks and stuff. But how are you feeling overall about All Out?
I think it's one of the best pay-per-views they've ever done, like from a bell-to-bell standpoint. I think there was very little that I disliked or didn't find in any way enjoyable from the show. And yeah, it seems quite amazing considering like last week's show was so much spectacle, and obviously I was there live watching it and thinking, oh my god, this is like the peak of it. And then you come to this show, and I think that this show actually outdoes Allin from an in-ring standpoint. Obviously, you can't match it for spectacle. And yeah, all those people that thought that this show was going to be hijacked because a certain person got fired proved to be dead wrong. It turns out people just want to watch AEW, and maybe not just one guy.
I mean, we did have some reaction to that news with CM Punk on this show. We'll talk about that pretty soon. But let's shout out anybody that's in the chat right now. I do see that we've got Christopher Marin in the chat. He forgot All Out was happening. I only keep up with AEW through Smark out moment. If you didn't even check it out, I don't know if you checked it out after seeing this or if you are just kind of popping up right now, but whatever. But highly recommend the show if you didn't see it already. I don't have too much to say about the 0 hour overall. There were 3 matches that were added to this since the last time that we had done our predictions. First things first was the over-budget charity battle royal, which was named such because the winner would be able to donate $50,000 to the charity of their choosing. AKA Tony Khan had cut a check, and they were just kind of doing this for the sake of getting a little bit of that out there. But that immediately meant no heel is going to win this. But I did think that it was pretty interesting that in the 0 hour, they had a little moment with Mogul Embassy saying if they were going to win, they were going to give the charity check to themselves, which I thought was pretty good. But that had some great moments here and there. The little pose off between Sean Spears and Daniel Garcia I thought was pretty funny. And ultimately, it's Hangman Adam Page that wins that. And I enjoy battle royals, so I liked it.
Yeah, it was a very fun battle royal, and like AEW is usually quite good at putting together these ones that are a bit more interesting than just the typical approach to it. I'm glad that like they more often than not move away from the and they still fall into this trope because everyone does, but like they more often than not move away from the there is a guy always on the outside of the ring and they're going to be getting in at the end of it to try and either eliminate the babyface or be eliminated by the babyface, which seems to happen in a lot of battle royals recently. But yeah, I thought that there was some good fun interactions here. Put some people over in terms of having people like Action Andretti and Cole Fletcher in the final 6 people, pushing the Mogul Embassy even further. I think this could, from some of the things that interactions that are happening on this, I think we could see, well, I don't know who necessarily will be challenging for the Ring of Honor 6-man tag team titles, but I think that Best Friends could probably be involved in it because they seem to be heavily involved with what the Mogul Embassy was doing on this show. So, but yeah, so I think it could set a few things in motion for future shows and future matches. And yeah, you get Adam Page gets a big victory. Hopefully this will push him forward towards whatever's next for him in terms of opportunities for titles or even just like big singles matches, because he's been desperately short of those in recent months. So it was good to see him get a win on the 0 hour.
And we were talking before about the idea that it was strange that he wasn't on the show, and they did manage to find a way to get him in there. A lot of other people that we thought should be on the show still didn't make it on the show. You know, no Chris Jericho, no Sammy Guevara. Saraya didn't defend her title, but she was there ringside for the Ruby Soho match. But, you know, I think this was a pretty solid way to put Hangman on the show, and kind of goes along with some of his other histories of having these battle royals and everything. It seems like one of his fortes. I don't have anything to say at all about the women's trios match. That was Athena and Mercedes Martinez and Diamante falling short of Hikaru Shida, Willow Nightingale, and Skye Blue, who got the pin, which I probably should have seen coming because she's from Chicago. I got nothing to say about it.
I thought it was really solid. I thought that the most interesting thing out of it is that we should hopefully get Hikaru Shida versus Athena at some point soon. But there's some nice little wrinkles, especially someone like me who does watch Ring of Honor, about having Billy Starks in Athena's corner and how she's referring to her as her minion. So, like, just having her come around and supporting her, because there were those stories going around that they were looking to see if they could manage to get Athena versus Billy Starks for the Ring of Honor Women's title on the last minute if Billy Starks was healthy enough to compete. Clearly, she wasn't healthy enough to compete, but she was healthy enough to be there and be in Athena's corner. There was some miscommunication between her and Mercedes Martinez and Diamante, which helped contribute to their eventual loss. But yeah, the biggest takeaway is that I want to see Shida versus Athena, and I want to see Athena on AEW more often generally. So
I also don't have really much to say, to be honest, about the World Trios Championship match that rounded out the 0 hour. It was the Acclaimed and Billy Gunn defeating Jeff Jarrett, Jay Lethal, and Santam Singh. Babyfaces had Dennis Rodman by their side, and his big spot was hitting Santam Singh with the guitar. The rap ahead of time wasn't really all that great. The match was kind of forgettable. I honestly don't remember too much that happened in it. It's not bad or anything. It's just it was a thing that killed some time.
Yeah, I think by far and away this was the weakest match on the entire show. But it's like completely harmless, and that's what the Acclaimed and Billy Gunn are at the moment. Is just quite harmless, more comedy style matches. So yeah, there were some fun things with the entrance. Like announcing them like they were in the Chicago Bulls, but wearing a Detroit Pistons jersey for Sanjay Dutt, and yeah, just some fun bits here and there. They continue in the ongoing rivalry between Karen Jarrett and Audrey Edwards, but yeah, other than that, it was just an inoffensive 6-minute, like nothing happening title defense. So yeah, nothing special. Definitely the weakest match on the entire show.
One of them, at least. I don't know if I'd go. Yeah, I mean, that's probably. It's either this one or one before it, and they're both kind of forgettable for me. One thing you shouldn't forget to do, though, by the way, is drop your comments below. If you are, of course, listening to this on the live chat, then you've got the super chat option, and you should be chatting it up in the live chat. But if you are listening to it after the fact, go back. Leave your comments. Tell me what you're thinking about all these things. Tell us what you think about our reactions to that. Make sure you hit the like button, that you are subscribed to this channel. You ring that little notification bell. Thankfully, no more pay-per-views coming up in this next week. At the very least, we got a little bit of time before we have to do another onslaught of those, but it will be popping back up. And then that way you'll get those email alerts of when we go live for these things, like the post shows. If you also want to help us out on the monetary side of things, you got the little thanks button there. If you weren't able to take advantage of the super chats live, you have the little join button over there on YouTube. If that's not something that you're into with the Patreon, it's the same stuff over on the YouTube channel membership. You still can do the Pick a Poison tier. You still can get access to the dark casts. Even $1 a month is something that helps out quite a bit. So pick up some merchandise on Redbubble and TeePublic if you want that. Keep all that stuff in mind while we're going along here and talking about the rest of the show. So we got XOY in the chat popping up now saying comment dropped. Let's see here. We started off the main card with the Dark Orders, Alex Reynolds and John Silver, accompanied by Evil Uno, up against the ROH World Tag Team Champions, Better Than You, Baby, MJF and Adam Cole. This was a pretty damn fun segment. I love this babyface gimmick of MJF where he's doing the whole, like, he's hulking up and doing the Ultimate Warrior rope shake and all, and he got a crowd chant going at one point for just sportsmanship and then poked Alex Reynolds in the eye. Dark Order working pure heel here felt a little strange to me after so long of them being comedy acts, but I guess you got to change it up every once in a while, and they had some good stuff going on here. I was a big fan of the little fake out, taking MJF to the back, and then he comes back for the big hot tag, and they're playing in this babyface gimmick a lot, and I really think they're doing a good job.
Yeah, this was a great opener, a lot of fun to just get started with just the usual mix of like comedy stuff, but then you have MJF taken out due to like suffering what they described as like a stinger to his neck, which is a fun way of adding to the story because the neck damages was caused by Adam Cole in the match at All In. So the fact that directly contributes to them potentially losing the titles here and leaving Adam Cole on his own to fight off like both members of Dark Order, who I thought did really good job as being just very straightforward heels, which is, as you say, can be a little bit jarring because they have been so like beloved comedy baby faces for the last couple of years or so. But again, it gives me a bit of benefit of having watched Ring of Honor recently, and that they have been clearly transitioning towards more, I don't want to say serious heels because they were still a bit goofy in this, but like definitely more definitive. Yeah, we're heels and we're gonna cheat to win or manipulate and go through a bit more of a devious approach to try and score victories here. And this was in full force here, and it worked really well for the match. And having MJF come back out, fight his way through, hit the kangaroo kick, double clothesline, gets the victory, still selling the neck injury. Yeah. So yeah, as I expected, perfect like a title defense for the Ring of Honor champions. They'll eventually drop to the Kingdom, but this neck injury angle adds a little bit of intrigue to it now of like, is this something that Cole or someone else can eventually take advantage of?
Yeah, is this going to be something that's a nagging injury heading into Grand Slam as well? With like, I mean, Roderick Strong's been walking around with a neck brace on, so are they going to do some kind of double neck brace thing going on? But they also played into this with a little bit of fun on the CM Punk speculation, and I guess you can say it's kind of confirmed at this point of what happened and all, but as MJF and Cole were going up the ramp, Samoa Joe decided to jump the gun and make his entrance, pushed MJF to the side, which made MJF want to go after Joe, who put MJF in a guillotine chokehold, and then everybody got separated. So they can't help themselves sometimes to just play into some of that and poke fun at themselves, right? I don't know if it's the best idea to do all the time. Right now, I don't think maybe not. Well, but it's still funny.
I mean, it depends, because is this a direct angle? Because I think that this points to Samoa Joe being the one that faces MJF at Grand Slam now.
Could be, but I mean, just even the way that they did it was kind of like, all right, you're referencing that, you know?
Well, I think most people in the crowd didn't pick up that reference or didn't care because it was just, you know, it was a fun brawl segment and something they weren't expecting to see happen in front of them. Just to see, you know, I saw some videos on Twitter of apparently referencing there was a segment on NXT where MJF was an extra in the backstage and Samoa Joe shoved him out of the way there, and so people were saying, oh, that's a reference to that rather than a reference to the CM Punk thing.
I took it as the Punk thing because of the guillotine and then being separated by the by the official. I mean, it could be both at the same time too. Yeah,
I'd say at the end of the day, the Punk thing it's not dead and buried, but like he's gone. Like he's no longer in the company. So if they want to take the approach of, because they know, or they should be aware or probably quite cognizant of the fact that a receipt is coming their way in terms of Punk is going to say things or do things, and that's going to reflect on them one way or the other. So I don't think I mean, people could say it's petty, but at the end of the day, it's a one-off segment, and it was like, if that thing hadn't happened like last week or whatever, then it would just be an interesting angle of like, oh, they're going to do MJF versus Samoa Joe soon. So yeah, I can totally concede the fact that it's slightly petty, but I think that as long as it served the purpose of advancing a story or launching a potential new feud over the World Championship, then I'm pretty okay with it.
And that led into Samoa Joe against Shane Taylor for the ROH World Television Championship, which this one I would put rather low. I thought that this was a glorified squash match that I wasn't interested in for the most part.
I thought it was pretty good. It was pretty short, but I think that was the way they tried to present it as like, I think that it wasn't much of a squash. I think that Shane Taylor held his own pretty much throughout the entire thing until Joe then just started just kneeing him in the face constantly and putting him into the chokehold. But yeah, I thought it was more 50-50 than Samoa Joe's usual title defenses on Ring of Honor. So I'll give him credit for that. Yeah, it wasn't perfect. I think there was a match that did the meaty guy slapping meat better than this one later on in the show. So, but yeah, I thought it was serviceable.
Samoa Joe retains his title there. I said before, I don't follow ROH, so I don't know if there's any kind of seeds that have been planted for what's happening next. But is there anybody that stands out to you that would be like an obvious number one contender to follow through and fight Joe next for that?
I mean, the one that they've been done. Well, the one that it seems a bit odd because that was the one that they had in the previous show, but Dalton Castle is it seems to me the obvious choice, because even though Samoa Joe defended against him in the previous show, that was marred by the interference by Stokely Hathaway, and on TV since then, obviously it's been kind of in the mire a bit because of Joe feuding with Punk and then being on Collision, and now he's got this MJF thing to worry about, it seems like. So we might not see it in that kind of full view, but I think he's going to have to face Castle again at some point. I don't know whether he'll be the one that ends up beating him for it. I think that there's a good chance they might keep this title on Joe for a good year or two plus at this point.
When's the next one? It would be Death Before Dishonor, or that Final Battle, I guess?
Yeah, fine. Yeah, it'd be fun. Yeah, they usually do like 3 pay-per-views a year, so it'd be the one in December, yeah, Final Battle.
Because Death Before Dishonor was the one that just passed, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And the Super Card was before. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, Final Battle coming up probably in November or so. I think that's when they did that the last time.
But I really don't see a need to take the title off of Joe for a while anyway. I don't think there's anyone that's like absolutely like red hot at the moment to take it from him, especially with Mark Briscoe being injured. So
yeah, which that could always be what they come back around for Claudio or something too. It's a little strange. I mean, we've been talking about the idea of Kingston and Claudio and all, and we'll talk about that a little bit later too. But yeah, I wasn't too big on this Mojo and Shane Taylor match. I liked the next match more. Luchasaurus successfully defending the TNT Championship on behalf of Christian Cage. over Darby Allin. They had just pretty much a good match. This was one of the many matches that featured quite a bit of bleeding from the forehead. And most of it was about Darby Allin's taped up back and focusing on that. So made perfect sense for him to eventually just fall short. But they did some stuff here with Nick Wayne. They did some stuff with Christian Cage. They had a good spot here with the Avalanche Code Red for a 2 count that I remember writing down. And it all ends with the tease of a concerto, bunch of tombstones, lariat to the back of the head, and then another tease of a concerto, this one to Darby, before a bunch of people like Best Friends and Sean Spears, and I think Action Andretti might have been one of them, came out to like run off Cage and Luchasaurus. So it might be the end of the feud, or they might have done that just to continue it going forward, to be like, hey, why'd you have to do that after the match or something? But I'm very glad that Luchasaurus retained. I hope that the match was good.
Yeah, and I feel this is a very, very good match. And Darby Allin gave Luchasaurus probably his best match, his best singles match in his entire time in AEW. Because Darby is great, and I think just pretty much anybody he goes up against, he almost brings out some of the best work in them. I think he's one of the best that they have right now. So I'm glad that he put on a really good performance. And Luchasaurus definitely more than held up his own. That the multiple tombstones towards the end of it was like just fun, just watching him hit the tombstone, then just stand back up and then hit it again and stand back up. And that's the advantage of having someone like Darby Allin, who is small enough that you can just like ragdoll around like that, and is more than willing to be ragdolled about because he's got no sense of self-preservation. So yeah, that was good. Christian using Nick Wayne and threatening to hit him in the concerto in order to distract Darby Allin for a brief period was a good way of adding to that, just showing that there's a little bit of, like, he's got a weak spot in terms of looking after Nick Wayne like through his journey in wrestling. So yeah, it was a good way to have Luchasaurus get the victory. A load of babyfaces came out to make the save. I don't know if that means that's just like a lineup of people that Luchasaurus could be facing soon, defending the title against, or whether that was just a case of, this guy's about to be potentially taken out for a long time, and every babyface seems to like Darby Allin for the most part, so they just came out and said, yeah, we're not just going to let that happen, and that would be the end of it. But yeah, either way, really, really good match. And yeah, be interested to see what Luchasaurus does next.
I mean, they could easily get at least one or two of those people to have a match with Luchasaurus going forward and have like Christian and them cut a promo of, what the hell were you guys coming out and interfering? That wasn't about you or something. But yeah, I like that match. Like that segment. I was a fan of the Miro and Powerhouse match as well. I didn't like it quite as much as the other one, but there were some good moments to it here and there. A lot of the two big meaty men slapping meat forever chant happening at one point. And Miro scored the victory with his game over submission, leading into another show of respect type of moment that leads into, of course, what you have to be worried about. Hobbs goes for a handshake. Miro accepts. Miro's a little bit hesitant, turns his back. Hobbs goes after him anyway. We're like, okay, yeah, he saw that coming. And then CJ Perry comes out, and she gets a steel chair, and she tries to help out by hitting Hobbs. He no-sells it, but through that distraction, Miro is able to pick up the chair, use that, and then look upset at CJ Perry and walk away from her. Huh.
I mean, that makes sense. If of course you don't actually watch the week-to-week shows, but like,
has she been on there?
No, she hasn't. But like, he's cut promos. In some of the promos he's cut, he said that he's forsaken his God and his wife and all the other stuff about that as well. So he's mentioned in the promo that he's not thinking about that stuff, or that stuff doesn't affect him anymore, and that's not his concern anymore. And so her coming out to save him, and him then deciding, yeah, I'm kind of away from you. I don't want you involved in this or involved in what I'm doing right now. So I think it made sense in how he's been portraying his character in recent promos.
Yeah, totally lost on me.
Yeah, but yeah, I really enjoyed this match. Again, I just like having like a hoss fight because it was different from so you had Samoa Joe and Shane Taylor as like an appetized version of this, but this was like the proper example of it on this show. I thought it really benefited from the crowd reaction of just them like every clothesline or every big strike would just been shouting the word meat constantly across it. This like they knew what type of match this was and they played into it perfectly. And yeah, really impressed with both guys. For Miro getting the victories, like a good step forward, but it does appear that at least for the time being, this feud will be continuing. And but yeah, thought it was really good. I might have like it was at that point it was on par with the previous match for me as like match of the night, but we were only kind of warming up in that regard because there was so much more to come.
That's very true. But definitely Kiss That Meat goes up there as one of the best chants of the night. And then the next match was Kris Statlander retaining the TBS championship over Ruby Soho. I don't have a whole lot to say about this one. I wasn't super duper high on it compared to some of the other matches that happened, especially a little bit later on. But I'm glad that Statlander retained. I didn't love the ending where Toni Storm just grabbed the spray paint from Ruby and stole for some reason, just to kind of distract her. I didn't like the execution of that.
Yeah, I wasn't like. Again, it feels like annoying to say because it's the women's match, but it's just like there just wasn't really. I wasn't super into the match because there'd been no real story going into it because they just said that Ruby just challenged her for it and just got the match, whereas there was a completely separate story which had involving Mercedes Martinez and Diamante that had been relegated to the buy-in match instead. I actually kind of preferred the buy-in match to this one. It was fine, but I didn't. It didn't do really much anything for me. It kind of makes sense that Toni Storm would get involved in the ending because after what happened on, I believe it was Collision that they had a match. There was a 6-woman tag on there, and there was some miscommunication between Toni and Saraya and Ruby there as well. So clearly they're moving forward with the whole Toni has completely lost her mind with this new gimmick and is separating from the Outcast as a result of it, which is probably the right approach to take. Like she should be the one that moves away, and then you leave Ruby and Saraya for a little while until they eventually split up as well. But Kris Statlander retained as she should. It was a fine match, just nothing that really grabbed any attention.
What's the next match after that? Strap match, I think?
Yeah,
strap match. That was Ricky Starks against not Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, but the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson. And they started off with the final countdown. Keeping that going. It's pretty interesting.
I think that's going to be just for big shows only.
Probably not on Dynamite and stuff, yeah.
No.
But that was cool. One of my favorite songs of all time. So, yeah, it's never a bad thing to hear that. And Starks jumped the gun for the match, started attacking Danielson before the strap was even around his wrist. Another match of people bleeding. Hell of a match with lots and lots of reasons to go back and check it out if you didn't see it. A little bit of interference from Big Bill. Lots and lots of whipping each other back and forth. And it ultimately ends with a little bell lock with the strap wrapped around Ricky Starks for extra motivated effort. And yeah, one of the best matches of the card for sure.
Yeah, this match was like excellent, and it's amazing considering that the Danielson is just coming back from that broken arm, and like I think they played this quite cleverly in that Starks pretty much took most of the first half or so of this match and just was pretty much just dominating Danielson, doing a blade job, and then just whipping him all over the place. But what was just really great about this is because it was a strap match, and so you don't really need to do too much like technical wrestling or too much high flying or anything that could cause serious damage. You just get as much you possibly can of whipping the other guy with a with a strap, and every time they would be hitting each other with it with just such ridiculous force that that's basically all you had to do. Just hit them really hard in the chest or the back with the strap, and the crowd is going to go crazy for it. And I thought it was excellently put together. Danielson just can just immediately turn it on like that, no ring rust, no issue whatsoever, and he's just able to get going. And it was one of Ricky Stark's best matches in AEW. And he's had plenty of those in the last year or so. He's had some excellent matches with MJF and Jericho and Punk and other people, but this one was way, way, way up there. And even though he ended up losing, he was in a really strong match. He can definitely come back from it soon. I'm sure they'll revisit it down the road. I don't think it'll be immediately, but at some point there'll be another Bryan Danielson and Ricky Starks match. Maybe Ricky can get the victory there. But thought it was a lot of fun. I actually really enjoyed Steamboat on commentary as well. I think he gave a lot of insight into the match itself and reasons for choosing Danielson, and Danielson being kind of a representative of him. Danielson cut a really good promo earlier on in the night as well, just talking about the reasons for him stepping into support. It's quite interesting because obviously he's still very firmly in the Blackpool Combat Club, but he was the definitive babyface in this match. So
not even the slightest bit of a tweener aspect to that. He was just pure babyface.
So, I think that's just one of the beautiful things about the Blackpool Combat Club is that they'll mold themselves to fit whatever opponent they're facing, and then but always be true to what makes them the Blackpool Combat Club. So, but this was an excellent match. One of the three best matches on the show.
Yeah, it was so good, in fact, that it really sapped a lot of my energy. And the next match that happened after that was Blackpool Combat Club's Wheeler Yuta and Claudio Castagnoli against Katsuyori Shibata and Eddie Kingston. And it was definitely a decent match from what I was seeing, but I really couldn't get into it. I was just so man, I want a break right now. I didn't end up taking any kind of a break just because I obviously had to keep watching it to be able to report on it and give my little thoughts here and there and have notes for the future and all. But I was just I want to step away for 20 minutes if I wanted to, or if I could. So I couldn't get into it. And I thought that the ending, they were going for a little bit, I guess, of a shock, where Claudio Castagnoli got the win with a random uppercut. But it didn't come off to me as much that the fans were like, whoa, that's the end of the match. I didn't see that coming. It was more as if they were like, whoa, wait, that's the end of the match? Oh, shit, what did I miss? It was a little bit more of a dud. So I don't really like how this played out. I don't like the idea that Claudio just pinned Kingston. So even the stuff that we were talking about ahead of time, if Yuta gets the pin, then that offsets him taking the pin before, and then he can get another shot at Shibata. Or if Kingston gets the pin, he gets another shot at Claudio or anything. This feels almost like they just sort of did this for the sake of it, and this is them saying we're done with that. I don't know. Not a big fan of it.
And they're clearly not done with it. Clearly they're doing Claudio and Eddie for the Ring of Honor title at a Grand Slam. I think that's pretty obvious at this point. But they decided to give Claudio a victory over him by catching him with the flash uppercut and getting the victory. It's one of those things that they got the victory over them at All In. Again, it wasn't Kingston pinning Claudio, but he was on the winning side of it. He's on the losing side here, so I think they'll still get the other match. I think maybe they'll add some kind of stipulation to it. I mean, Kingston has a title as well, so it could be title for title.
What's his belt again? New Japan Strong Champion?
Yeah, New Japan Strong Openweight Champion. So,
okay.
So yeah, he's got something that Claudio could want, because Claudio has already said pretty openly in interviews that he wants to wrestle more in New Japan and he wants to do G1 before he retires. So yeah, I'm pretty sure he would be swayed by the opportunity of winning that title, and it adds a lot of interest to it because I'm pretty sure New Japan would be totally fine with him winning that title as well. So it's not a definitive thing that Kingston would definitely win the Ring of Honor title there as well. But I think it's but yeah, that's the approach they're taking. You had Shibata. I mean, every time that you just watch Shibata wrestle, it's, again, for me, it's someone who watched him for a while before his injury. It's just great to see him being around and being able to compete. And he had some really good exchanges with Claudio in this. And like, he was choking out Yuta at the time that Claudio hit the uppercut to Kingston, and so couldn't get in time to break up the pinfall. But I thought this match was really, really good. Again, I know that it's definitely there needs to be a bit more of a balance for AEW in the sense that they, as opposed to WWE, just go match, and so it's kind of hard to like sit down and take a break. Personally, I prefer this approach to WWE stretching out a 2.5 hour show and making it 3.5 hours.
They're both wrong. Let's put it that way. Like,
yeah,
I don't think that this needed to be from 7 until midnight, and I don't think that WWE needs to stretch out stuff and do that either. They need to find like the healthy medium between the two of them.
Well, I think they need to just do like a halfway part of the show, like, or just just find a halfway point of the show and just say we're taking a break for 10 minutes, or just do something else for 10 minutes, for whatever, and then give people a chance to just like take a break or whatever, recharge, and then move on to the second half of the show, like an interval for a play or something like that.
Or even just you trim a minute off of a bunch of these different matches. You get rid of one match on the pre-show, and then that can make a big difference, you know? But then again, obviously when WWE does what they do, where you're like, all right, it's been 25 minutes and we're finally going to start the next match, and now I'm tired because of that. Like, you got to do something in the middle. But it's also not just from this card, even though that's a recurring thing with AEW from my perspective. It's also just, we just had Payback yesterday, and we just had SmackDown, and we just had Dynamite, and we just had NXT, and we just had 3 hours of Raw, and we just had Allin. Like, I was just like, I'm way overloaded on wrestling for these. I want to take the next few days to not do as much wrestling stuff. So then it took even a little bit for me to get into the Konosuke Takeshita and Kenny Omega match, to be honest. It took a good chunk of that match for me to really feel like I was invested. I knew that it was good what I was watching. And I specifically wrote on a couple things here and there of like, I would be talking about how great this was if this was happening 45 minutes ago and I wasn't so burned out right now. And then eventually they started picking up the pace even more. And then when we got to the end, it was like, yeah, it was a great match. And Takeshita got the win. So that's good for Takeshita. He was looking strong throughout the whole thing and all. So I can't criticize my lack of being like, oh, how great this was, because I know that it was good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was an excellent match between these two, an excellent first outing in terms of a singles match. I thought that this was kind of like your classic Kings Road style match, where it was like it was a very gradual build up at the start of it. Like, you start off slowly and then you build and build and build to like a really like exciting and dramatic finish where Takeshita is like kneeing Omega in the face constantly and throwing him around the place, but Omega's still managing to kick out again and again, and Omega's like trying to get like the one-winged angel from the top rope, but he's trying to get some other big moves and trying to hit the like V triggers and trying to take him out. But Takeshita always seemed to be a bit of a step ahead of Omega throughout the typing, which I think was the story they were telling. And then I also liked, and I think other people mentioned this on Twitter as well, but one of the good things about this was that the referee never got distracted for long with some of the shenanigans they were trying to pull, and like they tried to use the screwdriver and they tried to use some other things, and the referee was kind of on top of that immediately and getting involved in it. But in the end of the day, Takeshita won fairly cleanly with like dropping the pad on his knee and just ramming it straight into Omega's face again and getting the pinfall. And yeah, I think this is really, really good for Takeshita. It gives him a big win over one of AEW's biggest stars. elevates him immediately, means he could be pushing forward for other big matches. I definitely think we're going to see more of this in the future, because obviously Omega's not, as said already, that he's not going to stop until he gets his revenge on Don Callis, and so in order to do that, he has to eventually beat Takeshita in order to get to Callis, or, as I alluded to before, have that handicap style match where Callis is directly involved. But yeah, I thought this match was really, really, really good. It's like it only went just over 20 minutes, it was still the longest match on the card, but it wasn't like one of these ultra long matches that you potentially see. So I think they could definitely, I'd love to see what they could do with like 30 plus at a later date. But yeah, it's like really, really good match. I think it's just a taste of what they could do together in another environment. And
yeah,
also,
they'll probably figure out a way to get even better chemistry between the two, and who knows, maybe we get like an Iron Man match in the future.
I thought it was another one of those indications. I'm saying this before we get to the next match, because the next match was the most apparent thing, but we'd seen throughout the entire show of like this match had Omega in it. We'd had Adam Page in the opening battle royal. We had things with MJF and Samoa Joe and Ricky Starks and people that were just like have all been directly involved with Punk in recent times, and like very, very little like crowd involvement in terms of like trying to hijack it with Punk chants or anything like that. And then the next match happened.
And then next match, they were hounding the Young Bucks during this. Every time that Matt Jackson or Nick Jackson tagged in, they got booed like crazy. But they were also like kind of seemingly doing it for fun.
I mean, you wouldn't reference. Well, most people wouldn't reference this immediately, because I just checking out Twitter occasionally during the day. They were wearing the same attire they were at Brawl Out.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
And there was like reports. I don't know if there were any actual video footage, but reports from the end of Collision of Young Bucks doing a victory lap around the ring,
right
after a Collision. So
just like, guys, you're making it hard to make it seem like there's.
And there was and like during this as well, like they were obviously doing stuff with FTR, and FTR were making subtle references to Punk throughout the match as well. Like there were certain things where I think at one point where they were doing the BTE trigger between I think it was Dax and Matt Jackson, and I think at that point I think Cash, whichever one it was, did the little CM Punk go to sleep sign when he hit it as well. Again, it was just, maybe I was misreading I saw it subtly, and the moment I thought, oh, he's doing another little reference to Punk there. So it's kind of weird. Like the guys who seem to be the most joyous about the fact that this guy is no longer around, and the team that's probably the most upset about the fact that Punk is no longer here, having to team up together and do this stuff and try and take in two completely separate approaches, where one of them seems to be trying to honor his memory and trying to keep it alive, and the other ones are just reveling in how much they know the crowd hate them for the part they played in this.
But then they ended up having a fucking amazing match.
Yeah, no, the match was still fantastic, and a lot of that is due to the fact that just Bullet Club Gold is just great, and like I could just wax lyrical on how amazing this unit is. Jay White's fantastic. Chief Robinson is so, like, when it comes to like the end of the year, he's going to be high up my list of like underrated, like, because like he does so much good stuff. He's such a good promo. He's such a good character because he's so animated and does such good stuff in the ring. And the Guns have elevated themselves being part of this act as well, and they're the ones that obviously I think it's Colten gets the pin on.
Colten pinned Wheeler.
Yeah, Wheeler to get the. He got pinned by a Gun. Oh, that's funny. But
I didn't think about that.
But yeah, that's and that makes sense. Like they get the victory. I think this could definitely be leading to a 4-way tag match.
I'm sure that would be great.
Oh yeah, it'd be interesting because obviously that's two members of Bullet Club Gold, which are a very defined unit, being in the match with each other, which could be. I mean, it could lead to some little subtle digs at each other that you just see in the match, but then it doesn't carry on long term for the time being. But But it'd seem quite weird if it was going into what we were potentially speculating of having like a 3-way tag team match. If like the Guns are the one that got one of the Guns is the one that got the pin, so presumably they would be the ones to get an opportunity at the title because one of them just pinned a champion.
Yeah, like why would Jay White and Juice Robinson just sit that out and not want to take a shot?
Exactly. So they want to be involved. But so yeah, I think that a good 4-way tag team match would be a fun way to move forward with this. And I mean, I'm very partial to hopefully seeing Jay White and Juice Robinson be the tag team champions.
I wouldn't be opposed to it
forward. But either way, this was a super fun 8-man tag. It was probably better than it had any right to be, considering the fact that it followed Takeshita and Omega, which was a great match. And then you would have thought, okay, so they're the buffer between that and the main event. So, okay, it's just like a fun little 8-man tag team party match. And then they go fucking crazy with it. And so yeah, another really, really great match. Like the back end of this show was just littered with like great matches.
I would go on record saying that this was probably my favorite match of the night.
It was high up there. I think that I can't say that this was ahead of the 3 singles matches that I mentioned. I think when we'll talk about the next match, I think that one, just for the spectacle surrounding it, I'd have to go with the main event as my favorite of the night. But this was definitely on the higher end of things. But I think there was just there was just so many like good to great matches on this entire show that it's hard to judge all of them. But yeah, this was definitely a really, really fun match.
Yeah, this was like the right level of frenetic energy to just kind of boost my energy up a little bit again. And then that led into the main event. Orange Cassidy defending the International Championship against Jon Moxley. And they had a hell of a match. I mean, it's Jon Moxley and it's Orange Cassidy. You shouldn't be all that surprised. And Cassidy pulled out some stuff that we haven't quite seen him do before. He ended up actually beating Moxley to the punch about bleeding first. We had a split crowd for a little bit, but mostly people seemingly heading a little bit more towards pro Orange Cassidy. Lots of near falls, lots of great counters here and there, like the 2 orange punches, and then that leads into a counter of a cutter, and then that's the underhook, and then it's another orange punch, and then a spear for a 2 count and all. I liked a little bit with the little kicks that Orange Cassidy does, and then he ended up getting pretty fired up and actually kicking Moxley for real over and over again. And I really liked the kick out of the Death Rider too, where Cassidy just barely got the shoulder up and had a little bit more energy left in him to give some middle fingers, eat another Death Rider, and we've got a new international champion. Moxley once again saves the day, fills in the main event for CM Punk. This time around actually walks out with the championship, and Orange Cassidy finally loses the title after all this time for arguably the best title reign that anybody's had in this company.
Yeah, I think that they went a long way to make this feel like a big main event match, considering the fact it was for the international title, not for one of the world championships. But they gave it the look like fight feel thing of Moxley being led to just the entrance to the ring by Blackpool Combat Club, and then Orange Cassidy being supported by best friend Kris Statlander, and then them coming out just being one-on-one. Moxley dominating the vast majority of the match, like causing Cassidy to bleed all over the place. Cassidy doing his usual thing of just being so resilient and just never knowing when he's beaten. Like I'd say with the whole Death Rider towards the end, and him just lifting the shoulder up, like his body, like he didn't know it almost. His body just was like, I can't, like I'm just prone to kicking out at this point. Like it's like it was almost muscle memory to the point where like he had no idea he kicked out, but he had done. Like hitting the spear. It's like fucking Roman Reigns the
punch and then the spear. Yeah,
that was just funny. It was. I thought this was just like, it felt really obviously it was a great match on its own, but just the added emotion to the fact that like this was one of, if not the greatest title reign we've seen AEW ever have come to an end, and giving it that platform, being the main event of this already awesome show, and then both like delivering as they could do. Moxley is just, I mean, Moxley is Mr. AEW, but you make an argument that Cassidy is Mr. AEW as well in some respects. But these were two people that absolutely are at the core of what this company is at its very best. And then they were having a fantastic match. And yeah, Moxley gets the victory. He's new international champion. That immediately adds in a completely another level of prestige to that title. Like a 3-time world champion is now holding it. And I'm sure whoever wins it from him will be elevated significantly by just being associated with Moxley. But that elevation is also benefited by the fact that Cassidy's had such a fantastic, like, multi-month long reign with that title, which has involved like many great defenses, and he got a standing ovation at the end of it as well, blood gushing from his head. He, like, even though Moxley's the one that gets the title and walks out with it, the lasting image we got on the show was of Cassidy in the ring getting the ovation that he deserved for a fantastic reign and a fantastic performance again. And it's just, yeah, it's just great to see him getting so much kudos, so much well-deserved kudos for all the work that he's put in, especially when there's been so many people over the years saying that he's an embarrassment to what pro wrestling is. And just seeing an entire, like, near 10,000 people in a building give him a rousing ovation for just the work that he's put in is just a illustration of how far he's come and why he is, like, he should be considered a main event guy now. Like, he is the main event of AEW.
He very well could just challenge for the world title at any moment. And I think that people at this point need to be accepting of that. Like, he's proven it at this point. It's not just that he's a funny character. It's not just that, well, he can actually have a really good match. He consistently has great matches. And now he had a main event of one of the biggest shows of the year, and he delivered. And it wasn't just like, okay, well, he's only in the main event because it's Jon Moxley. No, arguably this was the Orange Cassidy show featuring Jon Moxley, more so than, well, I guess we'll throw that in there. And he's great. He's like the Undertaker of AEW in a completely different, 180 degree spin. Yeah. But that's kind of how I look at him like that. And it's like, at this point, I think you need to be okay with the idea that maybe in the future he might get that championship. I don't think that he necessarily will, because they only have had a few champions. So it's not like they have a turnover rate as high as WWE with the multi-titles and all of that. But I do think that if he were to do that, that people at this point now, after this match in particular, won't be like, whoa, you're giving it to him? What the hell? It's downgrading the belt, Yeah,
I think people need to get used to the reality that he is a potential world champion in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it is the point of, he's got a bit of a stranger age profile to some other people. He's significantly older than a lot of people on the roster. So maybe it's kind of, he's reached his peak at this point, and maybe there's only so far they can go with him now, but he's so beloved by the AEW fan base, and he's built up such a strong reputation with the victories he's built up, and now he's demonstrated that he can still do the Orange Cassidy stuff while be taken seriously and turn it on and be aggressive and like go toe to toe with the best the company has to offer. But I don't think that there's any reason why he couldn't be considered a credible world champion in the future.
He's also a really good indication of something that WWE in particular seems to ignore. If something's working, you can push somebody higher up and make them more serious without getting rid of that part of their character. You don't need to have, the heel turns babyface and suddenly they're not edgy anymore, because you need to have them just fit in the mold of your generic babyface, or well, the babyface turned heel, and now anything that they did that was going to get the crowd to pop, they have to stop wrestling in there. Like, you just let them do what they're going to do and let the crowd enjoy it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, let's say like history's littered with examples from like multiple promotions over the course of the years. But WWE immediately sticks to mind when you got like when you decide to have Diesel win the world title and then immediately try and make him Hulk Hogan.
Right.
And then you have like John Cena with the title, and then by a year the rapping gimmick's gone and the crowd hates him.
Yeah.
And it's just a case of like they've still maintained everything that what Orange Cassidy was. They've just layered on top of that a more serious edge to him and a resiliency, which is what's going to make him, which helps him stand out, which means that he can continue to do the cornball stuff, but you know that he's never ever going to give up in the ring as much as he possibly can. Like eventually there'll be some people that will like tonight will be able to just keep him down for a free count, but
it's not an easy fight.
Yeah, exactly. Like he will, you'll have to almost like knock him into the ground, knock him as far as you possibly can to actually get a pinfall on him, because he's demonstrated that like week after week, match after match, he'll continue to come back and continue to keep fighting. And I'm interested to see what direction he goes next now that he's without that title.
Yeah, hopefully they don't have this approach of like, well, we'll figure it out and he'll just drop by the wayside, and hopefully they have something in mind for him.
I think future trios champions, with best friends,
I'd be down for that.
Definitely something they should do. Obviously not the current next one because it's on the Acclaimed, but maybe the one after.
It could be the ones that beat the Kingdom. If the Kingdom is going to beat the Acclaimed and Daddy Ass, potentially.
Yeah, I'm still lining up the idea that the Kingdom are going to win the Ring of Honor tag titles.
Yeah, it could be that too.
They could make them the trios as well, but there's multiple trios. I still think there's a good chance they'll put it on the Jarrett crew at some point. But yeah, I think that definitely Orange Cassidy and Best Friends to be a very credible trio champions, and it'd be good to put some titles on the Best Friends because they've been there for a while and they haven't won the championship yet, so that'd be good for them.
All right, well that is All Out. It was a good show. I like it.
Yeah, it's definitely high up there. I mean, there've been 3 great shows in terms of pay-per-views for AEW this year, which is a good. Well, for I wouldn't class Bindora on that one just yet. But I think it's at the moment for me, it's between Revolution, All In, and All Out. Of just like 3 really, really great top to bottom shows. So I'm interested. It'll take me some time towards the end of the year to kind of figure out which one was the overall best. But I'm coming out of this one thinking it's going to be tough to beat again this year. They've got 2 more big shows lined up. Well, technically, if you want to class Grand Slam as well, they've got 3 big shows between now and the end of the year to see if they can top it. But I think it's going to be difficult, and especially considering the whole buzz surrounding this show beforehand, and all the CM Punk related stuff leading into this. Considering the fact they all came together and was able to produce a show that was this good and was able to keep the crowd, for the most part, entertained and not feeling the need to push the Punk agenda, is a testament to how good the show really was.
Yeah, so make sure you let us know what you guys have to say. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Tell us what your favorite moment was, what's your least favorite moment, where do you think they're going following out of this, who would you like to see challenge for the International Championship or the other titles going on. Whatever it might be, chat it up in the comment section below. Make sure you are hitting the like button on this. Make sure you are subscribed. Make sure you ring that little notification bell and you get the join button popping and everything else like that. Make sure you are, of course, paying attention to the rest of things that happen on smarkoutmoment.com and following us on Facebook and Twitter at smarkoutmoment. Go over to fanboysanonymous.com. Check out the Blue Brand, all the movie review type stuff, and elsewhere. Of course, every once in a while I tap into geek culture and talk about some video game thing or some television show thing, whatever it might be. You'll find that all over there. Hit up that YouTube channel as well. Check out the Patreon for that, Facebook and Twitter, And of course, the Blueprint project is something that's happening over there. So if you want to know more information on any of those things, like the Star Wars Blueprint or the Power Rangers Blueprint, whatever it might be, James Bond, Ninja Turtles, so on and so forth, hit me up on that end and let me know. And go over to the link tree that you can see at amangotree.com and like and share and follow and favorite and subscribe to all those things over there, including my personal accounts at Tony Mango, spelled out like TOE, and then knee like the body part, and then mango's like mango. Someone that, mango is not that much different, but all that stuff is over there. But make sure you are also following Callum.
So you can find me on Twitter at Wakemeister14. You can check out the Power Rankings that came out on Saturday. That's the most recent edition. Next week's one will take into account the events of Payback, and depending on who did well at Payback, that will mainly judge how they position on the Power Rankings. Make sure you tune in next week to see where people place. And you can also check out the Fantasy League stuff as well at www.fantasyleague.com, where I won Payback. Did not get to see it live because I fell asleep during the show. But yeah, I get the victory on that one, which means that I'll be able to make some tweaks to, or at least one tweak to my team. And it's important because Tony was pretty much winning every pay-per-view prediction contest. So that time someone else won instead. Tony will still be able to make some trades to his team as well. He hasn't lost that ability. So we'll probably reconvene at a later date this week to determine who gets added to what teams. And then you can check out who the new additions to our teams are and what changes, if any, have been made by heading to www.fantasyleague.com or finding it through the Smark Moment website.
That's going to do us in for the All Out 2023 Pay-Per-Viewpoint post-show recap. Thank you for listening. Thank you for all your support. Thank you in advance for following us next week, which we don't really have 100% set in mind what we're going to do for our main event. We got a lot of ideas that I put up on the Mega Maniacs poll. You got some superstar scores like Trish Stratus and John Cena and CM Punk and Lacey Evans. We could talk about what if CM Punk never left WWE. We could talk about what if John Cena got fired in 2002 when he was on the bubble of that before the rapping gimmick ended up saving his career. We could bump up the AEW and WWE roster tier lists that we do usually around the October timeframe. A lot of different options. And if you have any other suggestions, drop them in the comments below as well, too. We'll take that all into consideration and we'll figure out at some point in the next few days what we're going to do. And then we'll do it. And then it'll be up on the channel. That's kind of how it works. But in the meantime, that's going to do us in for this one. So thanks again for listening and adios. This has been another Smark Out moment. And we are being counted out.